and welcome to the New Property Show. I'm Steve McMenamin.
On this show, Rory brings us money tips, Mark talks about investing in rooming houses, our panel chats about sustainable housing, but first, Kien on self-employment, companies and trusts.
Kien, welcome to the New Property Show. Pleasure to have you on as a guest today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Mortgage broker. How long have you been a mortgage broker for?
I've started my mortgage broking firm in 2019, so I've been in the business for 5 years. And previously I was in the industry. I worked for the Commonwealth Bank as a relationship manager in commercial credit, so doing both commercial lending and home lending for 8 years prior to that.
Excellent. So you come with a wealth of knowledge, and today I guess this segment's not going to be specifically focused on first home buyers. It's more on the educated purchaser. We're going to be looking at self-employed structures. Let's start with self-employed. So they've had an ABN for a couple of years. How are you getting those deals across the line at the moment, and what are some of the suggestions and some of the input that you would have?
Yep. So self-employed people, business owners, is a very tricky topic, because it is in my clients, when they come to me, they have previously thought, I don't know where they hear it from, that it's difficult to get a home lending or home loans or even business loans as a business owner. And in fact, there actually are a lot more flexibility in the way the banks can assess someone's income when they are a business owner. Because that's why you started a business for. You want the flexibility in your lifestyle and also your management of incomes and cash flow, right? So yes, it is, there's some requirements, as in you mentioned the length of their ABN or the length of their business is one key indicator of, not an indicator, but a requirement where the lender or the bank needs to have comfort around they're going to make money. However, there are different ways to tackle any challenge at hand. I have got clients who has got an ABN for only, say, 6 months. I'd say that's a sweet spot. If you started a business yesterday and you're saying that I've got that much income, not impossible, I got to say, but usually you need to be able to demonstrate for over a period of time that you can make income. But the great thing about that is how to demonstrate the income, and different lenders have different ways of assessing your income. So I've done deals for people who have only started a business for 6 months, but they can demonstrate that they have an income, and their accountant can support it by providing some additional information, supporting letters, BAS lodgement, and the bank statements also tell a story.
So let's talk about structures there. So do you find it, if you're going to accumulate wealth versus using your personal name, that using a company, tax structures, those sort of things, are actually going to be able to give you greater leverage to get more lending?
Yes, so if you are an experienced investor, you would have heard that you could either own a property under your personal name, and especially when you look into purchasing something for investment purpose, you could, again, do it under your personal name, or you could actually place it in an entity. And usually the most popular entity that Australian property investors usually put their investment properties to is through a trust. Usually it's a discretionary trust with a company or an individual trustee. But with a company, you actually are separating yourself from that entity. So the company and its company trust is the legal owner of the asset, of the property. Plus, the lending is done within that trust. Yes, as a director of the company, you are a guarantor, but it's the company's commitment that is it is the company's obligation to make the repayment, and you as a guarantor only need to come in if that company fails to make the commitment, make the repayments. So in a way, if the entity that you set up is self-sufficient, meaning that obviously you need to build it up to a point where the rent covers all of the expenses and it's above water on its own, you can start to move to the next purchase, and some lenders would be able to ignore, not completely ignore, but accept the fact that that entity that you previously created is above board. It's self-sufficient. So they don't need to reduce your borrowing capacity for the new purchase.
So therefore, could you own almost an unlimited amount of properties if you had the structure right? You can just keep lending?
I wouldn't say that you can own unlimited amount of money, right? Because you still need to be responsible, because every property now comes with a huge mortgage often, right? Unless you don't need to borrow much. So you need to ensure that you have the capacity to make the repayments. However, the way that lending assessment is done in Australia, the great thing about it is it is there to protect people from doing extremely risky things, but it is also a limitation, especially for savvy investors who want to keep purchasing, and they just have this ceiling that they cannot break. And I think one of the best way to kind of break the ceiling is step aside from that room. And that room was created by by its own structure, its own entity. So once the debt is covered by the rent from that investment property within that entity, you can walk to the next room, create a new structure. Excellent. And the ceiling is reset again. So you're not stuck there. You don't have to stack up your debt.
Fantastic. It's a good way of explaining it. So let's talk about what's happening in Melbourne. We're discussing apartment sales or apartment purchases versus new home purchases. What's happening in the apartment space? Is that becoming attractive again?
Yes, I have seen that even before the spike in rental. Since the beginning of this year, that apartments started to become a good investment. When the government started to announce that they started to allow people coming back into the country, issuing more visas to visitors, students, immigrants. So apartments have been very popular, not just because of the spike in long-term rental demand, but also there are many owners who previously held these apartments for short-term rental purposes, like your Airbnb comes to mind. They were impacted massively, obviously during the pandemic, and there was recent uncertainties about the government imposing special levies on the short-term rental arrangement, which makes things like Airbnb not so attractive anymore in terms of rental return.
I think it's been a good run, but ideally the consideration is this, that with an Airbnb property, and it'd be obviously good to hear from somebody that's going to speak on that one day, but you've got so many, in terms of wear and tear, but you've got so many people in and out of these properties. You can have damage to properties. Obviously, you've got linen to take care of. You've also got cleaners to employ. There's a lot of responsibility as a landlord to be looking after these things. So I'm feeling, and I'm finding at the moment, due to the lack of supply, that everybody's moving back into apartments. Also, there's a lot of people are downsizing, but they're moving back into apartments and they're doing long-term leases. They're signing 12 to 24 months leases, and it's a set and forget, and you're moving on. So last thing there is, in terms of being a mortgage broker, what's your favourite type of deal to do?
Look, I'd say I excel in organising complex organizing complex deals. I find it, obviously, I find it really satisfying to help everybody. But my background in commercial and business lending allow me to actually help someone with a complex structure better, because I have got clients who come to me with the preconceived ideas, I should do cash out here, give me this loan. And I would turn around and give them advice that they actually have not been told that it's possible, and allow them to borrow more if they need it. Instead of having to sell, they could borrow more, and also in a structure that would also prepare them for the step after that. So that's how I usually tell my clients, I'm helping you take this step, but instead of just do what you told me to do, I actually want to understand what's the step after that. What's the ultimate goal in 3 to 5 years or even longer, so I can place you at the right spot, make it easier for you to then move on to the next level.
Hi, I'm here to help you keep more of your money in your bank account so you can choose what you spend your money on. I would really like to give you a system in which to use. So we're going to start by setting a goal, and then we're going to move through and have a look at your budget to see where your money is actually going. And then we're going to set a plan. And then very importantly, and this is a step that a lot of people forget, we want to review it. So the first thing is to set a goal. You've got to have a goal for what you want to save for, what you want to spend your money on. Now it can be a massive big goal like saving a deposit for a house. It can be a smaller goal like buying that new jacket or going on that holiday. But it's really important to have something that lights you up inside. Something that when you're at the shop and you've got to make a decision about should I buy that cup of coffee or am I going to save for my goal, you choose to save for your goal. Or standing at JB Hi-Fi, are you going to actually buy that tally or are you going to keep saving for the goal? And so that goal has to be something that really lights you up inside, something that's going to get you excited and something that you're going to stick to. Thinking about what's going to make you truly happy in the long term, not just for short-term satisfaction. Once you can find that goal, once you can find the thing that lights you up inside, you know you're on the right path to achieving that goal.
Hi Mark, welcome to the new property show. Absolutely love what you're dressed in today.
Thanks, Steve. Got to stand out,
mate. You've got a you do stand out. You've got a good name in the business. You've been in the education sector for a while. You've been a developer. You've helped a lot of people do room conversions. But what is it now that you do?
Do a number of things actually, but all to do with, as you mentioned, rooming houses. So we've got a development business that builds new ones for clients. We do conversions of existing properties. Got a business that operates them for people. In the education space, I get involved with state government, local government as well through the peak industry body in Victoria. So yeah, a lot of things.
And you're finding at the moment too, like I guess there's a few people trying to take on this space. You're the original.
Plenty copying.
You're seeing a lot out there copying, such as even ads nowadays, LinkedIn posts. But really, at the end of the day, you take away all the fluff. You've got to get somebody who gets the job done. There's a few codes out there and some even terminologies I don't hear about. But for those that are listening, would you mind just sort of telling us what those codes are, their acronyms, and really what they mean?
Sure. Well, I mean, it is a pretty regulated space, and it's and like I said, been dealing with it in Victoria for a while. And every time you think, geez, they've done everything they can to us, they come out with some more regulations or something like that. So obviously, you've got to deal with planning. So we are a bit fortunate. In Victoria, at least, there's some reasonably good exemptions and pathways in the planning scheme, and that varies around the country. Next thing is building code, so National Construction Code. That is consistent across the whole country, and that's where I hear different things said at times. Oh, that doesn't apply here. Well, it's a National Construction Code. So the building classification has to be right for the use, and that's all geared around occupant safety. The properties have got to be safe for multiple tenancies, fire safety if there's locked doors in the building and all that sort of stuff.
And even the building construction itself is a little bit different as well. So typically you've got to have exit lights, you've got to have fire extinguishers, even the way they're constructed internally, as I said, they've got to be durable. But what are some of the other things? You can't just go in and put 9 bedrooms in a house, livable space. What are some of the things that really you're coming up against, and how do you make a house that's 9 bedroom feel like home?
Well, look, I suppose the difference is, and this is, I suppose, a perception out there, and this even comes from councils at times too, where they're talking about it, thinking of it as a home, and like saying, oh, there's not enough living space or common area. Typically, that's problematic because you've got a heap of people that didn't necessarily choose to live together, but happen to be living under the same roof. So we're always aiming to make private space as comfortable as possible, and not so much the common areas, because that's where the fights happen. To put it, in a short way, or put it bluntly. So it's different to making it like a home. It's not treated like a family home or anything like that.
So it's really, therefore, obviously this is an investment too. And we'll touch on that in a second. But it's almost seen as a commercial arrangement. So it's the maximum amount of space invested back into the rooms. What's the benefit for the I guess the tenant moving in, but secondly, I think most importantly, because the landlord's taking the risk, why would you want a rooming house?
Well, I'll answer the second one first.
Excellent.
For the, why would somebody want a rooming house? Well, really, it's about the cash flow. I'm big on that. So, been doing it for a long time. You can do all you want to increase equity, but you can't eat the bricks. It's you've got to have something that gives you an income so that you can have a decent lifestyle. take holidays and do things like that. So you need cash flow from the property.
Yeah.
So really for an investor, it's about the cash flow and getting the best return on your investment. Now, some of the ways you do that is by catering to what the people who are going to live there are going to want. And I know there's the utopian idea of, like we touched on before, that they're all going to sit around and have wine and cheese on a Friday and movie night and all that sort of stuff. That's not the reality.
Yeah.
The reality is that they want their own space. They want to be left alone. They just want want what they want to be able to live comfortably. In a lot of cases, you might have people that are working in an area for a while. So what they want to come into is something where they can come in, it's furnished, everything's included, nothing to worry about.
So set and forget, in and out.
Yep.
And ideally what I'm hearing there is their personality type, whether it's one is they're either A, introverted, or two, they just need sleep. They just want to be able to, and I think that's normally the latter, they need a bit of walk in because most people live in their bedrooms anyway, so they get the TV, they're getting some Wi-Fi, they get the cooking facilities as well, showers, wash basin. Clothing, I guess they can either use a laundry or launder their clothes. Is that right?
Well, have a laundry in the house and stuff like that. So so they can they can do that. Cooking facilities is something that's that's interesting, and there was a push recently to change regulations to require more cooking facilities in common areas. And typically we're finding that it's not access to cooking facilities that's a problem. It's enough rubbish bins for all the Uber Eats packaging. Right, because it's convenient lifestyle that people are going for. They're not spending time cooking and not sharing meals and all that sort of stuff. It's just nice and easy, nothing to worry about. Somewhere to sleep. They don't have to do any maintenance or anything like that. Where if you rent a house, you've got to do lawns and whatever else. So.
And what's a topic that's coming up a lot for you at the moment? So what's coming up in your world? Are you seeing a lot more investors? You're seeing a lot more people building, but what's something you're discussing daily?
We are definitely seeing more investors. I think some of the things are, it's very different to a normal house, like you touched on, make it like a home or whatever. It's not, there's not, you don't need the common living areas, you need private space. It's, in some ways, it's probably more like a caravan park than a house, if that makes sense. I
think that is a fair assumption because I do see some agencies pushing this thing as in terms of you're saying about the utopia. But I guess what I really want to touch on is what can go wrong, because 9 people living in a home, if you don't have the compliance right, you sold it by an agent that's just after the commission, then you've also got a Rental Tenancy Act also look after that. And I don't imagine the average real estate agent would want to have 9 individual leases. How would you manage a lease? Yeah,
look, they are more intensive as far as work goes, and you do need to be, very responsive to any issues and deal with things quickly, because something goes wrong. Like you touched on that, if you've got a person in the house that's causing issues and discomfort for other people, you could very quickly end up with 8 people moving out and 1 person left, and guess who it is? It's the guy who's causing the problems, right?
Well, hopefully it's not you or I.
No. So you really need to be able to deal with issues quickly and address problems so that they don't escalate and grow to the point where you've got a massive problem to solve.
I have a genuine question here, and that is this: 9 people living in a house. Are they? And you've got 4 that get paid monthly, and the other 5 are getting paid weekly. How do you set the repayments? Is it a monthly rental you're picking up or a weekly?
Well, again, this is set by requirements in the Residential Tenancies Act, and we can't require anything more than fortnightly in advance. So if someone wants to pay monthly, we may accept that, but really we're setting the leases as fortnightly payments.
Okay, so you're keeping it manageable really for them, and also making sure it doesn't go out of control. And making sure the landlord ultimately, once again, that's taking the risk, is collecting the rent that he or she deserves. Last thing for, I guess, for the viewers out there, building a property portfolio. You've been in the education space, you've spoken all around Australia. Thoughts on attending seminars and syndicate groups and forming part of property alliances? I know you've run a few. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, I think, I mean, you mentioned the education. I think that's really important to make sure you're not just getting sold what benefits the person selling it to you. That it's actually going to benefit you. So I think that's pretty important to understand, not just what you're being told, but why you're being told it. And it is a pretty regulated space. And there is at times some shortcuts being taken and and stuff like that. And like you said, the utopian idea of how people are going to live together and what the reality is. I mean, you do get times where people get along in the house, but that's not all the time.
Mark, I think you've been absolutely amazing today on the New Property Show.
Thank you.
Would love to investigate this a bit further on another episode coming up.
Sure. Fantastic.
Today's topic is sustainable housing, net zero, and who should wear the cost. But for those watching, what's your interpretation when you hear the word sustainable housing? What does that mean to you?
Low impact, energy efficient housing from a consumer point of view.
Yeah, I'd say it's very beneficial for obviously the future in terms of global warming, or that it's a better way of living. Just about, I think, the cost for me at the end of the day,
Do you think young people care about sustainable housing?
I think it is coming more into it after seeing there is effects in this world, obviously, that we are seeing, but I think it definitely needs a bigger push. And I think housing is definitely a big market that it could affect it in,
I think sustainability is a very big topic, just globally.
Yeah.
With the advent of global warming discussions. I think definitely there's a big market of people that want sustainable housing, absolutely, in different pockets of
What about you?
state.
What about you, Daniel? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's certainly piquing interest nationally, and I think it poses a few challenges as well. I mean, when you talk about the costs associated, that it is arguably more expensive to dive into, and those that have the funds to do so can. But people don't often talk about the trade shortage or the trade specialisation that also is required to be able to produce that. And so it's an interesting market. It's a good goal to have, but at the same time, there's a lot of parameters to fix.
So it's an education that needs to go around it as well. So if you're going to work in that industry, you need to know how to work with the materials, I guess, that are provided there as well.
Yeah.
And what's your
I maybe push back a little bit. Sustainability, just like all other types of homes, have a range. You can have your Ferrari, and you can have your people mover, get around town. So it just depends on the materials that you want to work with. There's no reason you can't have a fully sustainable home working with conventional materials that the trades are used to using. It's really a matter of knowing where the impacts are and addressing those in whatever type of construction you use. And then there's passive solar, there's passive house, there's different schools of thought, but they all head basically towards the same direction there.
How does it compare in price when you are building a sustainable dwelling versus a conventional dwelling that's not as sustainable? Because at the end of the day, as a consumer, put my consumer hat on, I'm thinking about price.
Yeah, you're thinking about
That's
price.
what it is.
Okay. The main thing, if you want performance out of a house, it doesn't really matter what it is. The first thing is to get a good design. And a good design arguably doesn't cost any more, right? Maybe the design takes a little bit more time, but in the scheme of things, it's a very small cost impact on that. And then you want builders who actually know how to build that design so that it performs on the ground. It's one thing to have a house that on paper, when you put it through a house energy rating software, looks like it shouldn't take much energy to run. It's another thing to have a house on the ground performing at that level. And so a lot of it comes down to education, which is what the Sustainable Builders Alliance is trying to do by putting out a website full of practical information so that builders, designers, tradespeople can potentially find out what they need to do to make the system work. It's a little bit of a furphy, I think, to say, or not a furphy, but it's maybe 10 years ago that it would be justified to say it's going to cost me more. It's going to cost me more. But the know-how, the technology and the price points have really come down, so I think it's affordable for everyone. Just like you see solar panels on everybody's roof. The next thing is heat pumps, some good quality insulation, and that's it. You don't necessarily, because the technology has come on in leaps and bounds, you don't necessarily need to have a 10-star thermal fabric on your home. 7-star is fine.
Where you lose the most amount of energy physically is heating and cooling. So that's zoned heating, zoned cooling. You lose a lot through the flooring, so I'd love to hear about your thoughts on the flooring. So insulation through the flooring and then insulation through the roof as well. But let's work with the property. Let's just say it's 2023. We've got a property that's 20 years old. You're in real estate. You've dealt with a few people that do some purchases. Where would somebody come in and make their house more sustainable now? So what are some of the things that I guess you would do if you wanted to get a better energy rating? And I guess the other thing we'd leave there too would be the appliances. So you seem to be leading in this subject here. So guide us to where we would start.
Okay, so there's an existing house and we're
Yep.
just trying to improve it.
Yep.
So an existing house, 20 years old. Back then, we weren't installing insulation as well as we could be, as well as we are now. So the first thing I'd be looking at, get into your ceiling space, check if there's gaps and cracks. The old adage is if you've got 5% of holes in your insulation, the value of it drops by 50%. So consistent insulation is important. Put in the ceiling, most air risers, or hot air risers. So if you're in a cool climate, that's really important to get a good insulation in the ceiling. Beyond that, it's hard to insulate walls. Sometimes you can get under insulate floors. If you can get under there, good idea to do it. If you can't, the next best thing is just to work on gaps and cracks. If you've got air coming under the door and you get cold in certain places, fix those little things. Now, once you've done that, I wouldn't be spending any more on the house at that stage. I'll be now moving on to appliances. I'll be looking at your water, which is a quarter of your energy use goes into your water. So swapping over your water system, that's reasonably easy because that's just a technological fix, one for the other. Next, I would probably be looking at photovoltaics, putting on solar panels on the roof. This is in the order of things. And then I might be looking at my heating system and swapping out my gas system for reverse cycle air conditioner, sort of in that order.
Guys, I want to thank you for being on this panel. Interesting subject. Certainly heaps to talk about. We could obviously unpack this a little bit further, but you've been great guests. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
That's all for this week, and thank you for watching. If you'd like to see our full episodes, please check out our website, thenewpropertyshow.tv. And we'll see you guys again next week.